Amara and Nneka were sisters, but they might as well have been from different worlds. Amara was the sun-golden hair, a laugh that echoed like wind chimes, and a life that seemed blessed from the start. She had a loving husband, a beautiful home, and the adoration of everyone in their village. Nneka, on the other hand, felt like the shadow that trailed her. Her hair was the color of a moonless night, her smile was rare, and her life was a tapestry of mediocrity. She loved her sister, she truly did, but a bitter seed of jealousy had taken root in her heart, and it was growing into a thorny, suffocating vine. Every time Amara shared goodness, a promotion for her husband, a new dress, a compliment from an elder, Nneka would smile and congratulate her, but inside, the thorns would twist a little tighter. Why couldn't that be her life? Why was she always the one looking in from the outside? The envy became an obsession, a constant hum beneath the surface of her thoughts. It was this constant, gnawing feeling that led her down a dark and forbidden path. Late one night, guided by whispers and hushed warnings, Nneka found herself at the edge of the Whispering Woods, a place no sane person would dare to enter after dusk. She was searching for the hut of an old crone, a woman rumored to deal in magic that could rearrange fates. After what felt like hours, she found it a crooked little shack, leaning against a gnarled oak tree. The air grew cold as she knocked. The door creaked open, revealing a figure shrouded in shadows. Nneka's voice trembled as she made her request. She didn't want to harm Amara, she explained. She just wanted her life. She wanted to slip into her sister's existence, to feel the sun on her face just once. The crone listened, her eyes glinting in the dim light. She offered Nneka a small, intricately carved wooden doll that looked unnervingly like Amara. "This doll holds her essence," the crone rasped. "Every night, whisper a memory you share with your sister into its ear. With each memory you give it, a piece of her will fade, and a piece of you will take its place. When the last memory is gone, she will vanish, and you will become her." Nneka's heart pounded. It was perfect. She wouldn't be hurting Amara, just erasin here. She took the doll and fled back to her small, lonely room. That night, she held the doll and whispered their first shared memory, building a sandcastle on the beach as children. A strange coldness filled the air, and for a moment, the doll seemed too warm in her hands. The next day, when she saw Amara, there was a faint, distant look in her sister's eyes. It was working. Night after night, Nneka offered up their childhood secrets, their shared laughter, their tearsy itch memory a sacrifice at the altar of her jealousy. Amara grew more and more withdrawn, her vibrant light dimming into a faint flicker, while Nneka found people smiling at her more, calling her by Amara's name by mistake. Finally, only one memory remained. The day Amara had saved her from drowning in the river, pulling her to safety with surprising strength, her face etched with terror and relief. As Nneka prepared to whisper this final, powerful memory into the doll, a wave of cold dread washed over her. She looked at the doll, then at her own reflection. She was starting to look like Amara. But her eyes held a chilling emptiness. She realized that by erasing Amara, she was erasing the best parts of herself, the parts that had been loved by her sister. In a moment of panic and clarity, she threw the doll into the fireplace. It caught fire instantly, letting out a sound like a pained scream before turning to ash. The next morning, Amara was herself again, bright and full of life, with no memory of the past few weeks. Nneka, however, was changed forever, carrying the heavy secret of what she had almost done. The jealousy was gone, replaced by a profound, aching guilt, and the quiet gratitude for the sister she almost lost. Thanks for watching. If this story gave you chills, make sure to like and subscribe for more tales from the shadows. The effect was not immediate. Amara finished the calabash and felt only a slight strange warmth spreading from her stomach outward. She thought perhaps she had drunk too quickly. She set the calabash down and looked at her hands. They seemed different somehow. The light around her seemed different. The sounds of the compound began to feel far away, as though she were listening from the bottom of a pot of water. Then, the world tilted. She tried to call out for Chidi. Her voice came out wrong, not like a voice at all. She looked down at her hands again, and they were gone. Where her hands had been, there was only a shimmer, a transformation still completing itself, and she felt herself becoming small and cold and strange. Her body reshaped, her lungs searching for water instead of air, until she was no longer a woman standing in her own compound under her own tree. She was a fish, small and silver and trembling on the dry earth of the compound she had swept with her own hands just that morning. Nneka watched. Then she picked up her sister. This small silver fish walked to the river at the edge of the village and dropped her in. She stood at the river bank for a moment, watching the water close over that small silver shape. Then she straightened her wrapper, arranged her face into the expression of a concerned sister, and walked back to the village. Within days, the story Nneka told was this. Amara had gone to the river alone. Early one morning, nobody had seen her return. She must have slipped. She must have fallen into the current. The river in dry season was deceiving. It looked calm, but pulled hard below the surface. It had happened to others before. The village searched. They dragged parts of the river with rope and net. They called her name from the banks until their voices were hoarse. Chidi went into the water himself 3 times, pulled back each time by the men who would not let grief turn to a second tragedy. Amara was not found, because Amara was there in the water, watching them from below the surface with eyes that saw everything and a mouth that could not form the words to tell them. The mourning lasted weeks. Nneka mourned loudest of all. She wept at the funeral gathering with a wrapper pressed to her face. She sat beside her mother in the circle of grief and held her as she cried. She visited Chidi's compound to bring food during the mourning period, as was the custom. She came back the next day, and the day after that. Always with food, always with a quiet word, always with her presence making itself felt in the empty space that Amara had left behind. The village saw a devoted younger sister doing what family does in times of loss. Chidi saw someone keeping loneliness from swallowing him whole. 6 months passed, then a year, and in the way that life insists on continuing even when we think it cannot, Chidi slowly began to function again. He went back to his farm. He greeted neighbors. He ate the food people brought without tasting it, but he ate. And Nneka was always there, patient, present, never pushing, until she was simply there. And then she was necessary. And then one morning, Chidi looked across the compound at this woman who'd held his household together through his grief and thought, perhaps this is what Amara would have wanted. They married quietly. No celebration like the first wedding, just an agreement made before the elders and a union recognized by the village. Nneka moved into the compound. She slept in the bed. She used the pots. She sat in the chair. She had everything she had always wanted. But the river remembered. He fished the same spot every day. A quiet bend in the river where the water turned clear and shallow over smooth stones. One morning, Tabena noticed a small silver fish that behaved unlike any fish she had ever seen. It did not swim with the others. It came close to the bank when he sat down, closer than fish naturally came. It circled slowly in the shallow water near his feet and looked up at him with eyes that were not quite the eyes of a fish. They were too aware, too full of something that had no name in the language of rivers and water and fins. Tabena was a child, and children know things that adults have learned to ignore. He came back the next day. The fish was there. He came back the day after. Still there, he began to speak to it, the way children speak to things they do not fully understand but sense are important. Quietly, seriously, without embarrassment, he told the fish about his day, and in response, the fish would splash once for yes, and stay still for no. One splash. Did something happen to you? One splash. Did someone do this to you? One splash. Are you from this village? One splash. Are you Amara? The fish went still for a long time. The river moved around it. A bird called from the far bank. Then the silver fish splashed once, slowly, and the water around it trembled. Tabena ran. He ran to the one person in the village he trusted completely. His grandmother, who had lived in the village longer than anyone, and who knew things about the forest and the river and the spaces between the visible world and the invisible, one that she had never fully explained to anyone. He told her everything. She listened without interrupting. When he finished, she was quiet for a long time. Then she stood up, tied her wrapper, picked up her walking stick, and said, "Take me to the river." Mama Daku stood at the bank and looked at the silver fish for a long time without speaking. The fish stayed perfectly still, and the shallow water, as though it understood it was being seen, truly seen. For the first time since the morning, everything changed. The old woman knelt down slowly at the water's edge. She spoke softly in a language older than the village, words from a time when people still remembered how to speak directly to the space where the living and the transformed could meet. Then she stood and turned to Tabina and said, "Go and call Chidi. Tell him to come to the river. Tell him to bring nothing. Whose himself tell him it is important. Tell him it concerns his first wife." Tabina ran again. Chidi came to the river with the expression of a man who has learned to keep his grief tightly folded inside him so it does not spill into every moment. He stood on the bank and looked where the old woman pointed, and he saw the silver fish in the shallows. He did not understand at first, but Mama Radaku told him to be still and to watch. And as Chidi watched, the fish came to the surface and looked at him, and something moved in the water around it. A light that had no source, a shimmer that was not reflection. And Chidi felt something crack open in the place where he had buried his grief for over a year. He could not explain what he felt. He only knew that he was looking at something that recognized him, something that knew him, something that had always known him. His hands were shaking when he asked, "Amara?" One splash. He went into the water without removing his clothes. Mama Radaku worked through the night with herbs from the deepest part of the forest and words from the oldest part of her memory. The transformation did not reverse Isali. Evil that has been settled for over a year does not release its hold gently, but truth is patient and persistent and stronger than any dark water. By the time the sun rose the next morning, there was a woman lying on the bank of the river wrapped in Mama Adaku's cloth, breathing hard, her hands pressed flat against the earth, as though reminding herself it was real. Amara had returned. The village woke to her voice. And Nneka, hearing that voice from inside the compound she had stolen, felt the cold that comes when every lie you have ever told arrives at your door at the same moment. She ran. Some say she ran into the forest and was never seen again. Some say the forest took her back to Mama Ez, and that the two of them are still there at the far edge of the trees, unable to leave, held there by the weight of what was done. Some say she was brought before the elders and judged and banished beyond the 7 rivers, where no one in the village would ever have to see her face again. What everyone agrees on is this: Nneka was gone, and Amara stood in her own compound again. She touched the walls she had built. She held the pots she had cooked in. She looked at Chidi, and he looked at her, and there were no words for what passed between them in that moment, only the understanding of people who have crossed something enormous and found each other on the other side. The village gathered, every man, woman, and child, not to mourn this time, but to celebrate with a kind of joy that is only possible after surviving something that nearly destroyed everything. They danced until midnight, and from that day forward, whenever someone in the village was warned about jealousy, about the particular poison of wanting what belongs to another, they would remember Nneka, and they would remember Amara, and they would say quietly to one another, "The river returns what is true. The river always returns what is true." And evil, no matter how carefully it disguises itself as grief, no matter how long it sleeps in the bed it is stolen, evil cannot hold what does not belong to it. Not forever. Not against the patience of truth. That is the story. Keep it. Pass it on. Because the ancestors gave it to us, not as entertainment, but as a warning. A warning and a promise.